So before we start anything else, I wanted to kind of apologize. I forgot to put like one of the funniest parts in this game. I guess not really haha funny, but just kind of a neat kind of thing in this game from Hong Kong.
Nice shades.
So here we are back in New York, and we can see kind of Page Industries, a couple other little businesses kind of there, and our objective is to go and meet Harley Fieldman, who, if you remember, is the UNATCO informant.
No time to waste. You need to get to the Underworld Tavern and make contact with Harley Philbin. He is one of Dowd's aides, and he will set up the meeting. Follow his instructions. A problem, JC. Rioting in Manhattan has been so bad that the city's fallen under martial law. At this hour, the troops will shoot on sight, and I'm showing several guards and a robot near the hotel. Keep your head down.
So here we are back at the Underworld Tavern that we were at earlier in the game, and we can see that a lot has changed in New York. It's under martial law, and we are tasked with going to find this guy here, Harley Fieldman, that we've met several times before. He was an informant for UNATCO, so it'd be interesting to see, I guess, what he has to say at this point.
UNATCO's put a price on your head. What are you doing in the city?
I didn't expect the kitchen to be under martial law.
People know the government has a vaccine. Riots everywhere.
You still on the dole at UNATCO?
I never mentioned. I've been working for the NSF all along, and the Illuminati. I'm on your side.
Right, the Illuminati. I need to find one of their leaders, Stanton Dowd. A load of plague virus is on its way to New York.
Virus? You mean the Great Death? What's Dowd got to do with it?
The same corporation that makes ambrosia also manufactures the virus. Quite convenient. The virus came over in a super freighter previously owned by Dowd.
Yeah, most of Majestic 12 is just hand-me-downs from the Illuminati. Huh. We knew about ambrosia, but the virus? That's news. They're infecting people on purpose, huh?
I was hoping Dowd could tell me where the freighter would unload.
I'll contact him. Go to the burn-up storefront of Osgood & Sons, over where the tunnels connect to the warehouse district. You know, where the NSF had the generator. I'll try to get him to meet you there.
Osgood & Sons.
Yeah, and JC, be careful who you mention the Illuminati to. Like Joe Green. He's a spy for UNATCO.
The reporter? Are you sure?
Here's the proof. Hey, kill Green and you'll be doing all of us a favor. I saw him hanging around the free clinic.
So I'll pull this up really quick, the image that he's going to show us, but a lot of interesting things there. We see that the Illuminati basically gave Majestic 12 hand-me-downs, depending on how you want to interpret that, or Majestic 12 came out of Illuminati hand-downs. But there's the reporter. You see throughout this, some of the newspaper articles I've shown you is written by Joe Green. The fact that he's meeting with two men in black and a Majestic 12 trooper kind of makes you really wonder, does Majestic 12 now own the media as well? And so here we have absolute confirmation. You know, there's a lot of riots and things like that because they found out that the government has been withholding the vaccine, and the fact that VersaLife basically creates the virus and the vaccine, very, very suspicious. And like JC said, how convenient.
Green doesn't know who I really work for, so I managed to get him talking. Apparently, they promised Green some kind of position in Washington.
So there we see a couple more things. I wanted to pinch it out. So Harley is basically saying, I've been working with the NSF all along. So he's kind of saying he's a double agent. And you never really know exactly where their loyalties lie as far as these double agents. So we'll just have to see.
You out here because of martial law? I didn't know they were using Marines.
Nah, UNATCO likes to work alone. I just came out to look up a girl I used to know, Sandra Renton. FEMA gave me a pass for the curfew.
She left town.
I know. Just my luck.
What's FEMA doing handing out travel papers?
They took over the advanced submarine base where I worked. I don't like being pushed off duty, but I guess little R&R never hurt anyone.
They brought in their own staff?
Most of us were moved out of the main submarine hangar last night. FEMA set up a perimeter. We'd sure like to know what's going on in there.
I would too. Maybe I'll check it out for you.
You a cop?
Used to be.
I'll say it straight. I'm a patriot. I don't like to see one of our top secret bases commandeered, especially when the only people allowed inside are these Asian mafia types. You think you can do something about it? I can have my buddies at the front gate let you slip by. My name's Vinny. Tell them you know me.
Thanks. I'll see what I can find out.
So obviously, just because you mention his name at any base, they're not going to just let you in, but we'll go with it. I want to point out a couple things. Sandra Renton, we had some conflict, and she was inside of a hotel, and she was hanging out with drug dealers and the wrong type, and her dad asked us to kind of help them out. She decided to leave town.
I saw Walton Simons himself get out of a helicopter on the roof of the hangar. We know a cover-up when we see one. I asked one of the guys, so what's the emergency? Why's FEMA here? He said, you ask one more question, the emergency's gonna be you. That's how they talk to you.
So it's interesting, you know, Vinny's talking about FEMA commandeering a top secret base. It's very, very odd. And the fact that Walter Simons is part of that, and even Vinny's like, what is the emergency? You know, it doesn't really make any sense. All the military personnel basically were told to get out of there. You know, he's actually here because they all kicked him out. So that's kind of a little odd. The fact that I also wanted to point out too, the fact that we're supposed to go talk to a guy named Vinny and he's just going to let us in the front gate. It's kind of laughable, but you know, video game logic. So we'll we'll let it slide. So here's some very interesting things that come up on the bulletin. Now we see martial law. We see that J.C. Denton, also known as Pimperville 2, which I put in as my real name on this particular game, is wanted by FEMA, UNATCO, and police. FEMA, once again, very interesting. Why would I be wanted by FEMA?
Incorrect inform. Attach. Streets clear. No danger.
So kind of a very odd message there from Daedalus. We don't know exactly what that means at this time, but maybe somebody hacked his info link? I don't know. So our task here, it's a little side mission. This is Joe Green in person. We actually see him at the Underworld bar. Anything we say at all basically will go back to Manderley early on in the game. And the fact that he's a spy actually ends up becoming very, very interesting, because when you control the media, it makes you wonder, like, if they were keeping tabs on JC and Paul and things like that, and he's like reporting back like, hey, they're good, oh no, they're bad, they're, you know, saying this kind of stuff. So
you, sir, are you here because of the plague?
You some kind of journalist?
Joe Green, full reporter, Midnight Sun. Don't expect any help from the doctors. I interviewed them myself. Poker-faced as politicians, both of them. Didn't even blink when you say the word ambrosia.
Joe Green. I heard that you're a spy.
A spy? For whom?
You aren't a reporter at all. You work for UNATCO.
Guess you scooped me this time.
So there we can see without a doubt that Joe Green was a spy for UNATCO. He doesn't even really try to hide it when we confront him. He basically just says, oh, you caught me. So kind of weird, I guess. So here are two very odd emails. One, we see that Bob Page is supposed to be giving a 10 million credit donation to the free clinic, but all of a sudden it just doesn't go through. Like, he just changes his mind. And then, of course, Walter Simons here says something very interesting. It looks like they're on damage control, but he says, we do not have a cure for the Grey Death at this time. So he's basically lying. We know for the fact that he does, but apparently the public is starting to hear these rumors, and it's causing some trouble within Majestic 12 and Illuminati, like almost like they're losing control. So here we are back at the Underworld. We're just going to report back to Harley Fillman and let him know that Joe Green is dead. I actually just tased him, but for the purpose of this game, they consider him, I guess, dead.
I took out that reporter, Joe Green. I don't like people who ask a lot of questions.
No shit. Man, you really did change sides. Never would have thought it possible.
So he says something very interesting. He says, hey, you actually joined the cause. Never would have thought it was possible. So basically, a lot of people thought we were so brainwashed by UNATCO that we would have never switched sides to the NSF, which Harley Fillman is apparently working for.
You Dowd?
I agreed to see you because we have a mutual enemy.
Why a vacant building? I thought the Illuminati were bankers, politicians, Council on Foreign Relations types.
We always stayed in the background, even when that was true.
You all right?
Caught this damn plague myself. Anyway, we never had troops like Majestic 12 or freighters full of bioweapons, if what you say is accurate.
It's accurate. I just don't know where the freighter would dock.
They'll want to hide it. The only facility big enough on the East Coast is the Advanced Submarine Facility at the Brooklyn Naval Shipyards.
Of course. That's why FEMA took it over.
They're probably storing the virus in the ship's diesel tanks. The only way to make sure it's destroyed will be to scuttle the ship.
Scuttle a super freighter?
It can be done, if you know where to place the charges. Smuggler should have explosives that will work.
I already have some explosives.
I'd pick up some more while I have the chance. But if you think you're equipped, then find your pilot and get going.
You sure you're all right?
I'm hanging in there. If you come across some ambrosia on that ship, however...
Don't worry, I'll get you some medicine.
I'll give you a blueprint of the ship. The X's mark the 5 tri-hull wells. Crack those up, reverse the bilge pumps, and the ship will split open like a banana. Tong told me he found an interesting molecular signature on the virus, a clue to who developed it. I am certain it was a former member of the Illuminati. The custom among our scientists was to sign their work like painters. It was a group of conspirators within the Illuminati that formed Majestic 12 to begin with. The conspirators were far more ruthless than we were. We couldn't compete. Majestic 12 realized that technology alone could be a source of political power. However, the Illuminati laid the foundation. The multinationals, the global structures Majestic 12 depends upon. Majestic 12 inherited a system that took millennia to develop. It's true that our organization stretches back to the Order of the Assassins, or Hashishim, but not in the way you might imagine. The Order hasn't so much lasted as been continually revived. Adam Weishaupt started from scratch in Bavaria in 1776, but so did Thomas Jefferson a few years later. It's the idea that has lasted. The system, or the desire. Every thinking person's desire to give the world some decent organization. Cecil Rhodes, for instance. Absolutely no formal connection to the Illuminati at all, but one of the greatest visionaries of centralized power. Now we have Rhodes Scholarships, which feed recruits right into the Council on Foreign Relations, a very powerful tool. In my opinion, the history of the human race has been one long succession of conspiracies. To deceive ourselves, we call the successful conspiracies governments. We're running out of time. Better track down the smuggler.
So we see a lot of very interesting things that he says there. You know, he's talking about the Illuminati have been around for a millennia, so thousands of years. They were bankers, you know, and things like that. But all of a sudden, a group of, you know, conspirators within the Illuminati decided that technology was the way to go. And that was how you actually controlled people with power, was technology. And they actually kind of formed the Majestic 12 within the Illuminati, and it makes it kind of almost seem like they took over the Illuminati from people like Stanton Dowd here and inherited the assets and basically ran a different direction and became much more powerful.
I'm showing net activity on several of the smuggler's avatars. He must be at home.
So this is an interesting thing I'm going to show here, but you can actually save Smuggler, otherwise he will die if you do not do this particular thing. But interesting that we see that Gunther comes on over the radio and says, we have an operation coming, we're going to basically get you.
I'm picking up incoming MJ-12 troops. They must have your location. Better get what you need from Smuggler pronto, and meet me on the roof of the hotel.
I need your help.
What for?
I've located a supply of the virus that causes Gray Death. A freighter at the Brooklyn Naval Shipyard.
It's the government, isn't it? Part of some experiment.
Conspirators. Some in the government, some out.
What do you expect me to do about a freighter?
Help me scuttle it. You have any extra lambs or rockets?
You think you can scuttle a freighter with a lamb?
A few lambs at weld points.
I'll help you out. How about a rocket for a GEP gun? Usually save those for the NSF, but I'll sell it at a loss, say 2,500. You can also have a half dozen lambs for 2,400. Better buy now. I'm selling cheap only because a lot of people could die.
Give me a break. Hundreds of millions of lives are at stake.
I like what you're doing, but I gotta cover my costs. Hey, I'm starting to get nervous about this. What you're about to do is gonna turn some heads. I don't want any trouble from the authorities.
Actually, UNATCO's planning an operation of some kind. You might want to get out of Hell's Kitchen after I leave.
What kind of operation?
A manhunt. For me. I don't think you want to get caught in the middle.
Thanks for the warning. Come on, let's wrap this up.
So if you're able to tell Smuggler right there to get out, he actually won't die. It's kind of a lot of the other people that you can say, they don't have too much of an impact later on, but it is nice to save as many people as you can.
You telling me the truth about this super freighter? They're really gonna expose people to the plague?
A Marine from the shipyard told me that FEMA's involved. Guess they've gone from fixing emergencies to making them.
If you ask me, I bet FEMA wants to cause a national emergency and get control of the army.
I think we can expect Walton Simons to make a grab for power one way or another.
That's all they would need. One national emergency. Then they could get rid of the president, shut down Congress, and suspend the Constitution.
Smuggler says something very, very interesting there, and it kind of ties this whole thing together. Why is the director of FEMA so high up, and buddy-buddy with Bob Page? Well, Smuggler basically lays it out. If there's a national emergency, FEMA takes control of the army, the president and Congress are basically no longer in the picture, and FEMA is in ultimate control. The Constitution just basically goes to the wayside. So that we kind of learn why they're trying to make a national emergency with this Gray Death virus.
I learned a few things about your captors. They were henchmen for a secret organization called Majestic 12.
A corporation?
Conspirators. They want to take over the government.
Smuggler and I, and a contact he has, learned a few things ourselves. Where they had me working, we had tissue cultures coded JCD. J.C. Denton.
I must be some kind of standard, the yeast cell of the 21st century.
They were our target system. Zero response to the virus.
Does that mean I'm immune?
More than that, I think you've got the plague right now, and I think you've had it for years.
Why don't I have any symptoms?
It's part of your cell biology, the core component of your augmentations, which reminds me, I pilfered something from the lab you could probably use, an augmentation upgrade. The virus itself is a nanotech device. It just happens to have the same structure as the nanites that implement your augmentations. Not sure why they want to infect the public. Perhaps they've developed a way to switch the viral effect of the nanites on and off. We certainly weren't the only lab looking at this issue.
So that's Ford Schick that we rescued earlier from that lab, and we first kind of figured out about the organization Majestic 12. But he says something very, very interesting. He says, J.C. Denton has the Gray Death virus, and we're immune, basically. And that's very, very interesting. He says they weren't the only lab looking at our tissues. So we have something very, very special. And he makes it seem like they're nanites, like they can be turned on and off. So kind of like the kill switch that we learned about that Manderley was able to put on our brother, but we were able to get that taken care of with Tracer Tom. So there's a little bit about the Trilateral Commission. Do you want to read that? I'll leave that up for just a second. So here we see a very interesting paper that says VersaLife, there was a bombing and that I was involved, J.C. Denton. They're using my real name rather than the code name now. And they also say that they're on the lookout for Alex Jacobson, and now we know Jock's real name. It's actually Brian Flanagan. So it's very, very interesting in that. And we kind of see ties with NSF, Silhouette, which we still haven't actually met in person in Hong Kong there. Now at this point, because we were able to go to the tavern and speak with Vinny, a lot of these guys are, as you can see, my friend.
You must be Denton.
Who's asking?
Our buddy Vinny said to expect you. Think you can find out what's going on in there? Go for it.
Is FEMA really running the show?
FEMA and the Chinese? I don't like the smell of it one bit.
Me either.
This key will open the main gate. The guard just inside the main building entrance will let you pass, but don't expect any hospitality from the FEMA people.
So here we see that, obviously, as Vinny was saying, none of these soldiers liked the fact that FEMA just came in, told them what they need to do. It was just very suspicious. So we can see we have a few friends that are like, what is going on? If you can help us, we'll let you in. So just a second ago, Jock actually comes over my info link and tells me that there was a raid on Smuggler's compound that Gunther was actually leading. And it's very, very funny because there's actually two scenarios. One, if we did not go to Smuggler's den before that to warn him, it would have said Smuggler is in UNATCO hands, basically, and he got captured. But since we went back there and were able to save him, it says that they tried to do it, but Smuggler did get away and they're still looking for him. So on here, there's actually some very, very interesting emails that I want to point out. One, this is kind of the email that shows preparations for the base getting taken over. Here we have FEMA is coming in. Here we have another email about Gunther saying that JC Denton is not in Hong Kong. He's basically one step behind me, and he's going to get me for Anna Navarro. And this is a very interesting email about how VersaLife basically destroyed evidence of MJ12, and they're pinning it all on me as far as the explosion of the building. They basically blew up the building on purpose to get rid of all the evidence. So here we can see the ambrosia vial that we actually need to get for Stanton Dowd here. We'll go ahead and pick that up.
Captain Zhao, the helicopters will be there shortly. They're to be loaded for spraying of the virus. No delays. I want the helicopters operating before sunrise.
So we see a quick message from Walter Simons there about getting something ready. So obviously he was here if he's not still here, given orders, which is, as I've said before, very suspicious that FEMA is aboard this Navy ship. Another very interesting thing is when we kind of log onto these computers, we keep seeing PR China, People's Republic of China, on the domain net. It seems very, very suspicious, as Vinny had said when we were in the Underworld Tavern, that these Asian mafia types have basically taken over this ship. So here we have arrived at a cemetery just now when we are to talk to Stanton Dowd. And a couple things I wanted to point out, because there really wasn't a lot of lore in that last level with the ship that I had to blow up that was going to America with the virus. But a couple things is that Daedalus keeps telling me over my info link that there is somebody in Paris I have to contact. And he's going through all these databases apparently trying to find out anybody from the Illuminati that's still alive. And he basically said the last person he could find besides Stanton Dowd was Beth Duclair. So as soon as we arrive there, we're supposed to go and talk to her.
Yes? What is it?
I'm here to meet with Dowd.
Just a minute. I'll be right out to let you in. Mr. Dowd awaits you in the family mausoleum.
So here we see a message from Tracer Tong to Mr. Dowd here, telling him that he is sending an associate, that's going to be me, to talk to him and things like that. So leave that up there for just a second. The PRCS Wall Cloud, that was the ship that we were just on, and we blew up those welding points.
How'd you get in?
The gatekeeper. How else?
Strange. No one's supposed to be working this late. Did he say anything?
Not really. Think I should check it out?
Oh, don't mind my paranoia. Occupational hazard. I'm sure he has his business.
He seemed harmless. Anyway, I scuttled the freighter and destroyed the stockpile of plague virus.
Excellent, my friend. We have them on the run.
I brought you something for that cough. Hope it works.
Ambrosia, you found some.
Mr. Dowd, tell me something. Someone calling himself Daedalus has been broadcasting to my info link. He wants me to go to Paris to find an associate of yours, Morgan Everett.
Yes, Everett. We need his help to develop a cure. Who is this Daedalus?
I don't know. He seems to be an ally, but if your friend doesn't want to be found...
At this stage, we might be out of options. You see, I was able to decipher the molecular signatures Tracer Tong found, and it turns out Everett was the one who developed the eutactic component of the virus.
He developed the virus for the Illuminati?
Not exactly. The work was on augmentations. It was Bob Page who wanted to develop it into a weapon. Tong found Page's signature on the virus as well.
Page, the billionaire. How does he relate to Majestic 12?
He was among the original group of Illuminati who broke off to form Majestic 12. Not so good at the science, though. He must be directing operations.
So Everett should be able to reverse engineer Page's modifications and help find a cure.
Exactly.
Daedalus said I should find Nicolette Duclair first.
Yes. Everett is close to the Duclairs. My suggestion, too. Unfortunately, I've lost touch with the Paris crowd.
How do I find Nicolette?
She's a member of the French terrorist group Silhouette, last I heard. They're rumored to meet in the Paris catacombs.
Great. I'll have Jock drop me off at the catacombs.
I'll give you what I have on Nicolette. It's not much. Just a few snapshots of the catacombs area.
Thanks. I'm sure they will be helpful.
Bob Page was Morgan Everett's protege. A good student, but very impatient. When one of Page's plates was contaminated, he would smash everything in his cubicle with a ball-peen hammer. I should have guessed he would go bad. Page resisted the degrees of Illuminism as they were implemented. Never made it past Master of Tyre. He would sleep through the Hatha Yoga exercises in the morning, so it became impossible for him to advance. With Majestic 12, from what I can tell, he's replaced the degrees with a hierarchy of security clearances. Same structure, only secular. He names the various clearances after angels, though. I find that ironic. A bright man. Understands the origins of loyalty. Advancement through the layers of secrecy provides incentives for recruits to perform well. Don't underestimate the allure of a well-kept secret. Our organization lasted from the Crusades to the early 21st century, and our only secret was a technique of meditation, a way of imaging your body dissolving into light. If you want to know about Page, ask Everett when you get to Paris. They were like father and son once.
So I wanted to go over quite a few things. This is one of the main reasons why I'm doing these videos, is because it seems to be there's a lot of incorrect theories out there. And so this is one of the incorrect theories, is that Megan Reed possibly made the Grey Death virus. But here we can hear from Stanton Dowd's mouth that we just, kind of talked to. He said Morgan Everett actually made the virus, and Bob Page kind of tinkered with it until he had something that was basically the Great Death. So we're going to go talk to him, but as of right now, it is pretty plain in black and white that Morgan Everett, actually the former Illuminati leader, actually made the Great Death. Another very interesting thing is we see that Bob Page was Morgan Everett's protege. He was like this very, very bright young guy. They, thought they had a future in the Illuminati with him. And then you could kind of tell Bob Page just got rather lazy and was like, you know what, I could rule this a lot better. And then he basically took the Illuminati structure and then made the Majestic 12 and modeled it after that to better suit his needs.
Close one.
Ready to head out? Dowd needs us to contact his associate in Paris.
Everett, right? The leader of the Illuminati? But he's not an easy man to find.
Let's go.
If only Paris wasn't under martial law. What a great city it used to be.
So we can see as we're leaving here that the Majestic 12 kind of took over. So we kind of get the sense that the gatekeeper from the beginning was actually maybe an informant or some kind of undercover working with the Majestic 12, which is how they got here so quickly. So here we have arrived in Paris, France, and we are basically going to be finding the former Illuminati leaders such as Morgan Everett and Beth Duclair. Now the Duclairs, as they have said, are now leaders of what they call a terrorist group, Silhouette. Now we have heard about Silhouette at the end of Mankind Divided on the news channel, where they talk about various terrorist groups popping up, and they talk about, in Paris, the group called Silhouette is on the rise. Now we're going to find out a lot more about the Illuminati in this, whether it be that they kind of broke away from their traditional values and kind of plans, where we see Bob Page kind of taking the reins and taking it to this extreme level.
Well, enjoy Paris. Sorry I couldn't get you any closer than this. Majestic 12 troops have occupied the streets. Make your way down to the catacombs. Silhouette should have a hideout in one of the old tombs.
So as you can see, MJ12 has a very big presence here as well, and we are going to be looking for Silhouette, kind of like we've seen all throughout this game. Most of the resistance movements or terrorist groups have been, operating underground, out of sight, whereas Majestic 12 has been open, kind of overtly operating, out in the open. And I appreciate everyone for watching. I think that is actually going to do it for this episode here. This one's going to be a little bit shorter. I try to keep them around 30 to 40 minutes max. And I hope these are helpful. As we've seen, my goal is to kind of show you the facts and story of the original, so that it helps those of you that are playing Human Revolution and Mankind Divided, get that better story. So, like I said, I appreciate it, and I hope these are helpful. Thank you.